Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would...
Is Palantir setting up the one world order for the Antichrist?
Well, one tech company wants to change both of those things and become the ultimate military contractor and the ultimate arbiter of all of our data.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
Now, before you run to the comments section and say, Ruslan, this is clickbait, even secular spaces are noticing this horrifying pattern. Check out this clip from Joe Rogan about Palantir and its founder, Peter Thiel.
You know, Peter Thiel is giving a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist.
Yeah, that seems odd.
4 parts. Well, here's what's really wild to me. 4 parts. It's not just one. One lecture on the Antichrist would be insane. This guy's doing a series. He's doing a 4-part lecture on the Antichrist, and nobody in his inner orbit went, Peter, how about one lecture on the Antichrist or no lectures?
If you told me there was a movie and there was a guy who played the Antichrist, I would say, oh, is that him? Was that the Antichrist?
Now, oddly enough, I actually heard Peter Thiel speak at this past year's art conference put on by Jordan Peterson in London. And let me just say, it was very interesting to hear a tech billionaire, self-professed Christian capitalist who's also make a lot of the claims he made in that conversation. But what is going on at his company that got PBD from Valuetainment to say this?
Pray that these people are good actors and they want to do the right things and they don't want to use their power to control you and others out there.
Okay, so if you aren't familiar with Palantir and Peter Thiel, here is a macro overview of what they actually do, and I'll do my best to try and give a good faith reasoning for why they think that they're doing good. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. A lot of times that looks like us leaning into conversations about rumors of the Antichrist, the end times, surveillance state, and ultimately trying to get a biblical framework on these conversations. So if you're new here, or if you're not new here, do me a favor, make sure you're subscribed, hit that subscribe button. A bunch of you that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. And when you subscribe, make sure that bell notification is on, because we've been getting reports that a ton of folks who got the bell on aren't getting the notifications. All right, let's jump into this conversation. Well, if you aren't familiar with Palantir, here's a macro overview, and I'm going to do my best to be as charitable as possible regarding what it is that they do, but at the same time acknowledging how it can completely go off the rails.
People involved, you know, how now it's a $300 billion company. Just a couple of years ago, it was a $15 billion company. Stock just skyrocketed. I think I even recommended it a few years ago, one of the videos that I did. Trump partnering up, a lot of people with the California issue coming out saying, we should use Palantir. Why? Well, we have this technology called Gotham and Foundry. One of them knows how to judge people's behavior, similar to Minority Report.
So Palantir has an AI surveillance type software that can potentially predict your behavior. But check out what PBD said regarding the Palantir name and the connection he makes.
But the history of it's weird. The most basic thing to be thinking about, the name Palantir. Where does even Palantir come from? Do you ever watch Lord of the Rings? In Lord of the Rings, there's this thing called Palantir. Obviously, a guy like me, who for sure is a nerd, I follow all this stuff very, very closely. The meaning of Palantir is seeing stones. It's this stone that tells you what everybody in the world is doing today. So they're not even beating around the bush. We're going to build Palantir to see what you're doing. That's kind of like somebody starts a, old folks home called Hannibal Lecter. And you're like, listen, send your father, send your mom, your parents are going to be totally taken care of. It's why you guys call it Hannibal Lecter? Who cares? It's just a name.
But Palantir is not just a defense company. They are getting government contracts and even hiring former government contractors that are a part of this entire operation.
Palantir is at the front of a new group of companies who say they're going to disrupt the old, slow, bloated defense primes with their new, efficient, innovative, user-friendly Silicon Valley style. Because, you either die making boring old fighter jets or you live long enough to see someone come along with their own swarm of autonomous attack drones.
They've made a ton of really senior hires from US government agencies, and also a number of really senior Palantir executives have been appointed by Trump to senior government positions.
So it seems like this company with a very powerful software that could be used for bad is starting to weave itself into very powerful and influential positions. So this has rightfully caused a lot of people to be concerned about this company Palantir. And in a incredible display of completely missing the overall conversation with regards to their company, they decided to release this amazing commercial about the future of warfare. Battles are won before they begin. That's the tagline. And by the way, that use of drones, there's even been some speculation that the drone mystery that we had all over the East Coast may be connected to this entire project. Now that's not verified yet, but it is interesting to see folks with government contracts be able to do stuff that they don't even have to advise the public about, to test new technology that can then be used for warfare. And that ad obviously got his comments turned off. But let's go back to that conversation earlier between Tim Dillon and Joe Rogan, as they rightfully point out that there is an anxiety and a fear around this company, Palantir.
So I think it's not only these great fortunes, but it's their capability to literally be gods, to literally know what you're thinking, what you fear, what you want, your desires, all of these things, having all your data, knowing everything you do, knowing how fast your heart is beating. You know, all these wearable things that you have that are transmitting frequencies to, someplace where all of your health data is being stored. That's what bothers a lot of people. It's what bothers people about this Palantir thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
The Palantir thing is very odd.
A lot of people feel that this is the precursor to, a social credit score, a digital kind of police state. And that it's being done under the guise of security, that you will be safer.
Which is what the Patriot Act was brought through with.
That's exactly right.
It's always the case. It's always the case. They always sneak it in like, you got to be safe.
Yeah.
And then you get the Benjamin Franklin quote.
The people that want security, right, they something about, they deserve neither. Yeah. The trade liberty for security deserve neither. Yeah.
The people that are willing to trade liberty for security deserve neither. I mean, there's a lot of folks who have given up their rights in exchange for feeling safe. And is this going to be going down that same direction? But the presupposition in all that is that the people you give the power to, give your rights to, actually are good faith actors and want to keep you safe. But what's even more horrifying about this company and the possibility of a police state is the ideology of the founder. When he was pressed on if the human race should even exist, this was his answer.
Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit
Should
in
the
this.
human race survive?
Yes.
Wait. Why the hesitation? Especially as someone that professes to be a Christian. Now, I don't know Peter Thiel's personal relationship with the Lord. I do know that, apparently he's same-sex attracted, at the same time professing Christ boldly and saying that, the scriptures is what the West and American civilization absolutely needs to maintain our existence. At least that was what his talk was, more or less, when I was at the art conference and he phoned in. But that was spooky. But even in him answering, yes, the human race should endure and exist, it was the but that followed that's a bit more jarring.
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so it's always, I don't know. Yeah, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body. And there's a critique of, let's say, the trans people in a sexual context, or I don't know, transvestite is someone who changes their clothes and cross dresses. And a transsexual is someone where you change your penis into a vagina. And we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's so pathetically little. And okay, we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change your whole body. And then Orthodox Christianity, by the way, the critique Orthodox Christianity has of this is these things don't go far enough. Like that transhumanism is just changing your body, but you also need to transform your soul, and you need to transform your whole self.
I don't know who he's talking about. Okay. I understand that, yes, in Christianity, your soul should be transformed because that is the process of the scriptures called being born again, being regenerated. But man, he's either pretty far gone or this brother desperately needs some media training because these points are just falling flat. Changing a penis into a vagina is not going far enough. We need to go further. We need to give you a new heart. I like even if I'm giving him the most charitable interpretation, which is what he's saying is, hey, we need to use technology to create even better artificial limbs for the inside. And then once you can fuse with some of this technology, people can live longer and we could solve death inevitably. Like even if I give him the most charitable view of that, the way that came out was extremely clunky. And then to tie it into Orthodox Christianity, listen, I don't know. He's not talking about my camp. I don't think he's talking about the Orthodox. I don't think he's talking about the Oriental Orthodox. I don't think he's talking about, I don't think anyone is like, yeah, trans surgeries, those don't go far enough. God wants to transform your heart in the same way. Like it doesn't work. Like I promise you, it doesn't work, Peter too. I mean, to the point where the guy who's interviewing him, I don't know the dude's background, but he even pushes back on this.
But it still also seems like, yeah, the promise of Christianity in the end is you get the perfected body and the perfected soul through God's grace, and the person who tries to do it on their own with a bunch of machines is likely to end up as a dystopian character.
Well, it's
this video is the gift that keeps giving. So that is the general takeaway with regards to Palantir. It's a surveillance state that is saying that they're here to do good, but then when you hear some of the stuff from its self-professed Christian founder, who's also a part of the LGBT community, it gets really dystopian very fast. Now, again, maybe this brother just needs some media training. Maybe he really is moving towards an alignment with all of God's ways for his life. I don't know. I don't want to judge the dude prematurely, but based on some of the stuff that we're hearing, it seems really interesting. And I wonder how much of the limitations within life are there on purpose to remind us that this life is just but a vapor, as we see described in the book of James. Meaning that the sting of death reminds us that this home is not our final home, that we're ultimately living as exiles. We see this thought explored in Hebrews chapter 13. Verse 14 says, "For here on earth we do not have an enduring city, but we are looking for the city that is to come. Through Jesus, therefore, let us continually offer to God a sacrifice of praise, the fruit of lips that openly profess his names. And do not forget to do good and share with others, for with such sacrifice, God is pleased." Now, in our trusty Logos software, which, by the way, Logos is giving every single one of us a free 60-day trial. I used to have to borrow my buddy's login for Logos because I couldn't afford it. It used to be thousands of dollars. Now it's $10 a month after your free 60-day trial. But it could do cool stuff like I can select the word city. Here's a little cross-reference to Hebrews 12:27, but I can select the word city, and I want to know what is the original Greek word for city. I go here, and the word for city is
polis.
Polis, which is city or town. This is usually used as a community, a Neapolis in every city. This is where the disciples would go to, different towns they would travel to, right? And then if we go down here, we see the etymology of the word, which is always fun to look at. This is also can be considered like an urban area, right? That it's not a village. This is where people congregate. And then as we go deeper, we see Jesus going to every city. In Matthew, he's going to towns, and it's giving us that word regarding city. So here, this is not our final city. This is not our final destination. This is not where we're going to spend eternity. There's a new heaven and there's a new earth coming. Now, what I love about this verse is that at the end, verse 16, it says, "And do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifice, God is pleased." Now, this idea of doing good, do not be afraid to do good. As followers of Jesus, that this is not our final destination. This is not our city. We also see this exhibited in Jeremiah chapter 29 regarding the children of Israel in exile in Babylon. And though Hebrews tells us not to make this our final destination, not to obsess with being here. I think Jeremiah 29 also applies to the heart and the sentiment that we should have as followers of Jesus. In verse 4, it says, "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon." So these are God's people. They're carried into exile in Babylon. Babylon is referenced in Revelation, and that's why I think this applies. He tells them that despite him taking you there, despite being in exile, despite this not being your final home, he tells them, build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce, marry and have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons and daughters, and give your daughters in marriage so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Also, seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I've carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. So here we're told to plant gardens, build homes, think multi-generationally, have families that have families, and ultimately seek for the peace and prosperity of the city which I have carried you into. So if all of this stuff is true regarding Peter Thiel and the Antichrist and all the craziness, all of that is true. That doesn't change our command as followers of Jesus to seek the peace and prosperity of the city, same word, city, that he's called us to. Here, Paul is saying, and do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices God is pleased. There is a lot of despair. There is a lot of disillusionment. There's a lot of frustration. But Jesus said it this way in a parable about the last days. This is one of my favorite things that Jesus said in the KJV, by the way. So shout out to all you KJV only people. He says, and he called his 10 servants and delivered them 10 pounds. This is the parable of the 10 bags of money. And this is Jesus as the master, as the owner going away. He's leaving something with his servants to do. And this is a parallel to Jesus ascending to heaven and leaving something with us to do. And he tells them, occupy till I come. Okay? Occupy till I come. And again, if we look at that word occupy in the Greek, we see that it means do business, trade, right? Take labor in, to be busy while Jesus is gone, because he is going to be coming back. That's a lot of the theme of my new book, Godly Ambition. It is a #1 bestseller on Amazon's inspirational spirituality. And this is the theme that's explored in my Occupy Till I Come 60-day devotional journal that we are now giving everyone the digital version of this devotional completely for free. The link is pinned up in the comments. So if you can't afford the physical copy, you can't afford the Godly Ambition book, you can now get the free digital version of this completely for free. And if you want to see how hustle culture tried to replace God and completely failed, leading to something much worse, check out this video over here. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.